part of that, this legacy, odyssey is not just, where we start is what we do. The journey is actually more about the journey than anything. It's a life endeavor, and it can be. And then there are different milestones, different feelings, different goals. And I mean, there's, it correlates back and forth. Then there's areas about reflection. You do something and say, gee, man, maybe I could do it this way. Or maybe, use what. So it's a organic process, and in all that is underpinned for me. It's all pinned by gratitude, just being, remember the day that Buzz welcomed me to come to his class. He regrets it, but it's a good thing. It was a good thing for me.
It was a good thing for everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome to our podcast. Today we have a special treat as I sit down and talk martial arts philosophy with Sensei Leyn Burrows. Sensei Burrows began his training in 1971 and is a 9th-3 black belt in Uechi-Ryu karate, as well as the Sempai of Buzz Durkin's Uechiryu Butokukai. This fall, he is testing for his 10th-3 black belt and Grandmaster title. During our interview, we discuss his experiences growing up in Bermuda before moving to the United States. We also discuss how his karate training has helped him navigate life's obstacles and challenged him to discover a higher sense of compassion, patience, and empathy for the difficult individuals he encounters in life and in the corporate world. I always find my conversations with Mr. Burrows deep and fascinating, and I hope you do too. Please enjoy Sensei and soon-to-be Grandmaster Leyn Burrows. It's a pleasure to have you. Maybe just starting off, for those who don't know you, maybe you can talk more about the beginning of your karate journey, how you started your training, when you started your training, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, it actually came here to America in 1969 and came with a number of guys, and one particular guy who ended up being my first sensei, Al Wharton, who was a school buddy. We went to school, we knew each other from living in Bermuda since we were like 9, 10, 12 years old. We went to the same school, Bermuda Technical Institute. Anyway, we traveled a couple of times, went to Canada, and then in '69 I was looking to go to Canada permanently, and we stopped in Boston for a vacation, 3 weeks and so forth, before I was going to go on. And somehow we ended up not leaving Boston. But anyway, Al Wharton, back in the era, in this early 60s through the early 70s, we used to box, Muhammad Ali, and we were following the sport of boxing. So on weekends, there was 4 or 5 of us took over a rooming house in the Back Bay of Boston, near the Peninsula. So what it was, they were charging weekly rent. So on Saturdays we'd get up and we'd do these little boxing sessions and stuff like that. And then he found his way down to George Mattson School. And so he'd come back and, we'd go to this routine about boxing, and all of a sudden he'd stick a leg out. When I grew up, 50s and the early 60s, only females kicked. Guys didn't kick. I mean, you went down, they kick you or something like that, but kicking was not permissible for guys. Anyway, in the era that we grew up. So when we were trying to do these little sessions, we could do the hand stuff, and all of a sudden the kicks just threw me off. You just didn't know how to deal with it. You try to catch it, and of course you get hit. You didn't know anything about blocking and all that. So I went down, and when Al started at George's in Boston, I went down, sat around, looked at the school, looked at what was going on. Turns out that Jim Maloney was Al's direct teacher under George. And so I wasn't sure about joining it or anything like that. And Al, was going through the matrimony. So this is like 1970, and he's moving along. He gets his green belt and brown belt. So I said to him, which is not permissible, he wasn't a black belt yet, hey man, could you show me some of this stuff? So he's condescendingly, we were in practice, he started teaching me a little bit about Uechi-Ryu and stuff like that. And then he says, well, you know, eventually when he gets his back, he wants to open a school. I could be his first student. I already got a little extra private lessons and training, so I knew a little bit about it. And so, yeah, it was 1971, you know, going on. And then joined, and I started going to Mattson's. And then Al left to go back to Bermuda in '74, the same year Buzz opened his school. And so I got the bitten, you know. Then I went to George's, and then I remember Buzz came back. He was a guest teacher at George's, you know, as he was getting ready to figure out what he wants to do at school. I was so enamored by Buzz in his teaching, even though. So it went from there, you know, and then in '75, I think it's '75, May or June, something like that, I became a showdown. And then, you know, it just, and then we moved. I moved from, I was in North Andover, moved to Haverhill. And then after going to Buzz's school at George as a guest, Buzz was a guest instructor, I was closer to Buzz than I was to George. The issue I had was that George would run these classes, and at the time he had a head instructor, Bob Campbell, was running the school, actually taking it over and so forth. And then the classes would end like 9:30. And time I got home, it'd be 11. My wife Jody was like pretty upset, you know, because I'd be coming in. Even after the workout, we'd go, you know, get something to eat or something like that. So it was like over until like midnight, you know. So from home reasons and political reasons and family reasons, from Haverhill to Buzz's when he was in Salem was like you know, a 20-minute ride the back door, you know. Yeah, and I can, you know, get home after class, you know, 9 o'clock or whatever, and once time we'll go out too. But the fact that I can get home earlier and she can get access to me seems to ease up the issues around the relationship with myself and my wife. I took on this karate. I just loved it. In fact, Jody calls karate my second wife. So, and then it just went from there, and I just feel so blessed about learning this, and it's transformed and impregnated me or integrated in me that I just love the martial arts. And I read about it, practice different things. And one of the things I loved what Buzz had me do, he would obviously keep me in class and all that. I was like the wild card. I have a vivid imagination. I was always an engineering mind, a building mind, so I come up with formulas and things like that. So he let me go and play with a concept, you know, and then he'll stick to bring it back on target. So I like that. I was able to do a lot of experimentation, and it's, you know, I couldn't ask for it. I felt a sense of freedom. The other part of it that I got touched with is I grew up as a kid in an abusive family, and it was, you know, it was culture. What happens is my sisters and brothers, the people before me, what they did was they thought hitting children to make them disciplined was a way of doing things, and so there was a lot of I wouldn't say not animosity inside of me, but I was always, even when I was being a punk, I always had a good heart. And the martial arts over the generational, over decades and all that, I was able to come from this bully, you know, where the you against the world thing, to integrate into being part of the world, being a part of anywhere. I feel like I can go anywhere on earth and just commute with people, you know, and meet them at their terms. And this 50 plus years of training in the martial arts has given me the confidence, inside confidence to do that I can see people as people first, and I can look at the behavior and discriminate between the behavior and the person. So it's a good landing spot right now to be, and promoting this, the martial arts through discipline, camaraderie, respect, decency, understanding. I still have my fables, you know. You're going to just talk to my wife, and she'd tell you about all my fables. But no, it was good heart, always willing to want to support and help people. And since I retired in '17, out in the Berkshires, I've been dedicating a lot of my time of volunteerism. I'm working with college kids, working with different groups of people, in lines of service, understanding, education, culture. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I feel so grateful to want to, support people with it. It's not about gathering any more stones. The squirrel concept is over for me. It's no more gathering acorns, and I don't need anything.
You let someone else run over the place now. So it seems
Well,
like
I don't have to gather. I want to give things away, give myself away, and connect with people. So that's where I feel. And at this stage, where I'm being invited in 4 months to be promoted to Grandmaster, it's more than I can ever envision, and it makes me want to even give more away. So double down and giving, And I feel so blessed in terms of where we are with my family and my grandkids and kids. It's been a good journey. So, yeah. So martial arts, it's been the strain or the root or the connection rod through that. There were times in my life where I was in really competitive and provocative conditions, mostly to do with businesses, and getting up and doing some calisthenics and do a run, and then come back and practice the cartas, and just render that stuff and get a lot of that frustration out, and go back into a meeting where it's so spirited, and just sit there and feel calm with, be like a referee, with everything going on, and be discerning. This has been really good to be able to do this, to take this. I didn't know that, so much was be available in the martial arts, and how fruitful it can be, yeah.
it's everything you're kind of saying, that confidence and also the compassion that goes with the training, that connection with people that you tend to run to people from all sorts of aspects of life, and you get to take that with you outside the dojo, I think is very crucial.
Yeah, one of my journeys in work was that I became a district guy. What that means was that a large company, I was working for a large utility company, and they would be getting contracts all over the country, up and down the East Coast, Boston, New York. These were big mega contracts. And the district guys, our responsibility was to go into Pennsylvania, whether it's Philly, it didn't matter, or Minneapolis, or Orlando, or Virginia, or DC, and we'll bring some resources in, but try to establish what we call a satellite office in that area, so that we could start hiring local people. It always works if you can get local people involved with the project. And some of these projects were good size, millions and millions of dollars, and 2-3 year projects. So it wasn't like 6 months. It was, and then so the ability to going in, interview people, open up a little satellite office, and then get it so that the people who are there start to run it, and I would just come in strategically. I get to meet a lot of people, so I was able to interview people, local people. We have run ads, and people come in, whether they're a contractor or engineers, and to get staff. So I get to meet people, and I meet all sorts of people with different attitudes and disciplines and competency and levels of education. So I became very good at it. So initially, what it did, the downside was that I did a lot of flying, especially from about 89 till I ended up in New Jersey in 94. I'll be flying 44 weeks, 45 weeks a year. So I became more like a weekend father, especially, and then my kids were ready to go to college, and so I missed some of the stuff. And the way it worked in my household, Jody would tell me about all the things that I had 3 children. Matthew was my eldest, and Sarah and Joanna, and she would tell me about all the things that they misbehaved on, and I would be the arguer to come home on the weekend and tell them dot dot dot, you know, you're not supposed to do this, and then fly out Sunday or Monday, you know. And one time, I remember my son Matthew, he was 18, just graduating from high school or something. He says to me, I get him on the phone, and he says to me, Dad, you're going to get on, this is like midnight. He said, you're going to get on a plane, fly back to Boston to tell me what I need to do. I said, no, man, it won't be until the weekend. He says, normally our policy is to deal with it right then, right, within 48 hours. We don't have this legacy. We don't leave things, you know, for tomorrow down the road. So, but I'm very proud of my children and grandchildren. We have 5 grandchildren. And my children are very decent people. That's one thing that we're very proud of. You know, they're good human beings. Despite the careers and all the other stuff, which is really important, the education, being very decent people was a big priority for my wife and I about how to raise them with that. So that's been good. And Matthew took a little karate for a few years when he was 9, 10, 11, something like that. But he was an athlete. He wanted to. I didn't want him to force him to do it. And Sarah never did. Joanna did it a little bit. And but I thought that he has choice, you know, and he wanted to play basketball and track and field and football and all that stuff. And I think when I became, what's it, 5 years ago, right? 18, I became ninth dan. Ninth dan. He said to me, Dad, would you teach me a few of the katas so that it'd be my legacy or his legacy
Right.
to learn that, you know, to do that. He's a fireman, lives in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. So I thought that was very sweet. Right? So periodically when we practice some stuff, and share some stuff with him, self-defense stuff, and want to make sure he knows how to handle himself, because he's in a situation where he's running inside buildings and doing a lot of, he's a first responder.
Gotcha.
You know? Yeah.
That's important to stay active and have that center.
Yeah, to have that, and a lot of tension. You know, one thing with these guys, they see a lot of horrific stuff, and they sometimes they discuss it among themselves, and I think that the fire departments now are more sensitive, that they have people come in and have them talk about it, because it used to be like nobody would know about it, just talk amongst themselves. So they want to help them, you know, grieve some of the stuff that's going on. Yeah.
So changing topics for a moment, how would you say your training has changed over the years, starting when you were a young adult to training is?
Yeah, so Bill, that's a good point. So one of the things I was always curious about, that, you know, the Uechi-Ryu in particular, about the hitting, conditioning and all that stuff, and I loved it. I mean, I was, you know, and then I had to start thinking about longevity, you know, aging, right? And you know, it's important to get your body, your limbs and everything strong enough to defend yourself. That's really important. But then it can get a little excessive. Right. And then it can, you know, if we do too much, for instance, I noticed when we started seeing the Okinawers came over during, George had a summer camp in the 80s. You know, they had them before we went down to Okinawa in 86. And it was when they put their hand up and they're pointing, it'd be like this. So, a little story there that Buzz asked to do a little fundraising. So I worked for this engineering firm. This is in the 80s, and I asked it was called Shishana Engineering. It had about 400 employees, engineering, across the disciplines, civil, mechanical, you know, electrical, site. I mean, it was what they call a full boat engineering firm. And so I wanted to take up you know, we were going to do a demonstration, and during lunch, and it'd be in the back of the building parking lot, and they were right over the bridge in South Boston, in downtown Boston, and I had Ron LeBrie and Tracy, and myself would come there. So Tracy Rose and Ron LeBrie, and so we get there, and this was like in the spring, like April, May, or so April, and we bought these cinder blocks that have been sitting out in the elements for the winter, soaked with water.
Soaked with water during the winter. I see where this is going.
And then the wood had all these nuts in it that we didn't know that there was a trick to, how about also the grain, how you line the grain up, and then these nuts in the wood. So you don't want to have nuts in the wood because it makes it 3 times as hard to break. So we just got material together, and we're doing this whole thing. We test each other, and at the end, we're going to do some breaking. You know, we got the 2x2s, we're breaking it with over legs and the shin breaks and all this stuff. And then I want to leave it with this final break, and I had Tracy and Ron hold this cinder block, you know, patio block, you know, 2-inch, which was soaking in water, right? So frozen water. So I'm slamming my elbow into it, bam, man. And all they're doing, Tracy's holding Ron's holding, and all they're doing is bouncing back. I'm standing in front of my coworkers, and I notice that blood is running down my arm and on my gear. But I said, we have to break this thing.
Did you break it?
Yeah, so what I did, we put them on the ground and put 2 bricks perpendicular and put a brick over the top. And I got down on one knee. I'm going to do a shuto. And I did a shuto, went right through the brick, hit the ground, hit Mother Earth, and the right hand blew up like a basket, a mitt, right? I couldn't even get my gi off. It was like 3 times my hand. So I'm standing there watching my coworkers, and I said, "Thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it." And they're all going, "This guy's crazy." The guy's crazy.
So needless to say, you don't do that anymore.
No, I didn't do that. But the whole thing was, I remember my supervisor came to me and said, "Leyn, great guy, wonderful, practice, toughness, and all that stuff. But you know, what we're doing, engineering, we got to use our hands. You got to use your hands. And if you can't use your hand, your job might be in peril." So I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Yeah, you got to draw, you got to do it, you got to reports and all that stuff." So that was, taking it further than needed to be. But it was the heart, it was that, perseverance type of stuff. And Buzz will have a story to share with you when we did a demonstration up there in Methuen, where we were trying to break, it's a 2x2 or something, a bow, and it wouldn't break. And it was a wet day, so we were hitting the pole and it's just digging to the ground. So we brought it back to the
Physics was not on your side.
Put it against the wall, and I was out there doing conditioning for about a half an hour. I finally broke it. So that's the perseverance part. But you don't have to go to the extreme. But it's important to have perseverance. How that works is that it works like when I have a setback, I can regather, refocus, and have that dominant perseverance that, okay, we learn how to move through that. And courage to do that. So it's not always a cakewalk at times, even when it's difficult or I manage projects and people, so we always get sometimes conflict and stuff like that. So just being able to stand between 2 people and be discerning and quiet and say, "Look, guys, you got to figure this out," that's part of the karate piece. So that's been a real big bonus. And then the other thing about having your voice. So sometimes you see something, say something, and the karate, the martial arts gives you the confidence is to put your hand up and say, "Look, this may not resonate with everybody. This is coming the way I see it." Gives you the confidence to have your voice, to speak out. And also it gives you confidence to be quiet if you need to reflect, So it's a wonderful experience, you know.
So you've kind of talked a lot about how the martial arts has changed you through training over the years. Is there anything you'd like to see the martial arts continue to do, or maybe some stuff you'd like to see change in the martial arts and how people train?
Yeah, you know, I would say it's really interesting. I think that the material that we have in Uechi-Ryu is fantastic. As an aging person, I'm using the warm-up exercises and the warm-up exercises and secondary exercises just to get around from day to day. I didn't know they were therapeutic, but using, you know, I've had injuries and been to physical therapists, and it turns out that some of the things that we're doing is what the therapist wants us to do. You know, the heel raise, maybe little scoops and things like that, twisting the hips and, you know, balancing and doing those types of things. It's very good for anybody, you know, so you don't have to be into the martial arts to do that. It's just good for the body to do it. And the other piece is that you know, I don't necessarily do it anymore just for training purposes. I do it because it's healthy to do, you know, to stay pliable. One of the things about aging, as we age, about falling and hurting, but while being flexible, being pliable, some of these exercises we're doing keeps us that way. You know, so like if I'm going to trip, what I learned how to do is bend my knees so I'm closer to the ground when I fall versus resist the fall, which a lot of people do, which ends up even worse. Yeah, and of course that's different from a cliff. You don't want to invite yourself over the cliff. But so doing that, and then that what it does, it gets back to the awareness of what's going on. You know, you know, you're aware about where you're stepping. You're aware about what's going on, and it's not done like, you know, like anal. You know, it's just it's awareness. You know, it's from when we were looking around where we're going. So automatically, I do a lot of hiking. So in the woods in the Berkshires, there's all sorts of terrains. You know, there's level 1, 2, 3, and 4 levels. You know, as far as exertion and time and distance. But what's really important about using my feet as eyes. So not that I'm looking down, but when I hit the ground, I can feel whether the ground is slippery or got sandy or whatever, and that comes up from the martial arts, where I'm aware, even though I got shoes on or boots on, I'm aware of the texture that I'm walking on. So one of the challenges a lot is, especially in the fall and winter, is the roots that stick up, or the roots that are under foliage. You know, leaves fall down, so you're stepping through the woods, and all. I've been down on my backside so many times because you can't see it, so you learn how to use your feet as your eyes, you know. And I didn't think about it, but then I'm saying, gee, we years and years we're pivoting, we're doing this with our feet. Why not make it as a useful tool?
I always tell my students when we're practicing break falls is that this has saved me more outside the dojo, more outside of fighting than anything.
Absolutely.
Same thing, hiking,
Yeah.
moss on stairs,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
protecting yourself.
Yeah. So, you know, and then the other part of this, Bill, is that I always wondered why, like when I had that a couple of years ago when I hurt my knee and I fell off that platform in the Berkshires on the Appalachian Trail, I fell into a pond and I got infected. And the doctor, sutured me up, but he never cleaned the wound out. So my whole leg got, you know, and then I didn't have a staph infection in my knee. I was lucky, but the problem was that the suture was right across the knee joint. So he was, when the wound doctor was seeing me because he had to sign off. I was doing physical therapy. Putting me on the bike and putting me in the physical therapy was to bend my knees, but open up all the time. I said, when is this thing going to heal? So he taught me something about it's not so much scabbing over from outside, he wants to heal from inside out. So I was really impatient, and I'm saying, well, every week I come, this thing open up again because I'm bending my knee, I'm doing the biking, I'm doing squats, I'm doing this stuff here. So what is that? And he was right. What it is, my body had to get to a point where it's going to heal from inside out. So that was just another aspect of what's going on with us. That you know, maybe what we need to look at is look at the inside of what's going on, not so much on the outside.
Right.
you know, and you don't have to go into the weeds on it, but it makes sense, you know. For instance, your large muscles, you know, if you're working outside, you're chopping wood or building something, you want to pay attention. So you're building up elasticity in your body, and you maybe need to take a break and drink. So you pay attention to that. You see, you know, that you're getting stiff. So you take a break, and you saturate yourself. You know, drink some water, or some juice, or something like that. Get yourself, going. And then if you look at the science, to OSHA has all these things out there saying that when people are doing certain things, there's a recovery period that's important. You know, so it's interesting that we talk about burning the candle at both ends, or giving the recovery is really important. So learning how to rest, so that like when we're sitting here, for instance, I want to be fully relaxed. I want my shoulders to be relaxed, I want my legs to be relaxed. I don't want to feel tension in my body. So that helps my body to recover. But if I'm stiff, then my circulation gets compromised a little bit, and all that. And, nobody needs to go to that level, but you can't work 50 years with your body and not pay attention to it. You know what I mean? So, and it may resonate with people, it may not. But you know that for yourself, this works a little bit and this does, and it gives you set limits. So now where I'm at, what I do is short bursts of training, 20 minutes training, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, but it's only 20 and 30 minutes, a high intense training. I'm finding out that I get a lot more out of that, getting my heart rate up and my energy and muscles going, but then allowing gestation time for recovery. And that seems to keep me nimble. It keeps me flexible. I could, reach down, I could tie my shoes, I could do all that. So that's a whole different regimen than doing a 2-hour workout that I used to do, run 6 miles a day for, I do these weekend marathons 45 weeks a year for 40 years. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but learning how to listen to yourself and treat yourself with kindness for longevity is important. So yes, pushing through the envelope, being perseverance and all that, but you have to listen to what's going on. And it's not so much the exterior, it's the interior stuff that's going on. That's the stuff that gets us, like the heart attack and the clogged arteries and all those things are silent stuff. It's not out in broad daylight. It's covered up inside the skin and bones and stuff like that. So you want to pay attention to what's going on, and then you can pay attention to people around you. You can pay attention to your loved ones. You can do that. How it works too. It works from the inside out and outside in.
What I tell my students, the martial arts begin and end with respect, and that's, like you said, respect for yourself, and respect for others.
Yeah, yeah. And the other piece about, I was thinking about this. I've got a book that I'm reading, and it's anyway. The idea is that it's a little bit of dualism. It's about even when you're the most centered person, because you're human, they can have a doubting day, and when the doubt come along, doesn't mean that's a bad thing. You can look at the doubt and scrutinize the doubt, and then move away from it, rather than shun it and act like it's not. As humans, we are always going to have the yin and the yang. We're going to have ups and downs. We're going to have in and outs. We're not the most cerebral person in the world is not going to remember every word, everything that he did, okay, or she did. So we have to grow into our vulnerability, grow into being human. And being fully human means that we're never always going to be perfect. It's not always going to work. And then now when things go off, we have a little more tolerance for it, and we laugh at it, make silly out of it. Well, you get upset of things that you have really no control over. Well, what's the point, right? And hopefully that's the wisdom that we can grow into. Doesn't mean we're happy with it and we're going to live with it. It just means that we're going to approach it maybe more pragmatically and more realistically than just getting angry and all upset about it, that nothing's going to change about that. And then there are some things that are not going to change, and then we make a choice. We say, well, you know what? That's okay. I'm going to do something else. right? And that's okay too. You can go and do something else. It doesn't have to be that what we want it there. It's okay, I'll do something else. Choice. And so the marshaling about, hopefully in our lives, is that we will be in charge of what we choose. There's going to be environmental factors, there's going to be things that we're forced to do, but I want to make decisions myself as much as I can for what I think to live a healthy life, you know, or to live a connected life, or to live a life of giving and receiving. So I want that choice, not outside influence telling me this is what I have to do. I choose. Not that I don't listen to people, not that I can't, you know, learn from anything else, but I want choice. And the martial arts can give us that if we pay attention to those attributes, as I call them, you know, as we go along. And then you have no fight. If you're not fighting yourself, there's no battle going on. There's no fight, man. There's no fight. I don't need to fight you, man. I'm at peace. Why am I going to fight you? I ain't going to fight, you know. And then when you have to, then you will. And there's no thought about it. It's done, you know. But if I'm always preparing, it's funny, you know, training to fight, I'm never at peace. I'm warring all the time. Whereas if I'm peaceful, then I have to war, I'm okay. You know, that's a choice that I'm going to make, you know. So hopefully, I mean, these are things, I know it's a little deep in the grass at times, but these are some of the benefits. It means that we walk around free. We're not terrified and we're aware of a lot of things that are out there, but we're not petrified and we're not, you know, hiding away from life, you know, because the boogeyman is there, you know. No, you just put a light on the boogeyman and say, wait a minute, that's a caricature. That's not really a boogeyman, you know. So that's it. And then you got a question about the training. On a personal level, most of us, you know, myself and other people I know who come into the martial arts, we were in search. And basically, I think we were in search to conquer ourselves. To choose for ourselves. Doesn't mean my wife's decisions and, you know, interface and all this is not important, but I'm making decisions because I'm choosing to. And sometimes those decisions are not going to be welcomed by everybody. I got that. And I'm not trying to be an obstacle and just be an outlier. But if I'm true to myself, then I'm going to make decisions that is true to myself without compromising that. You give and take, of course, right? You know, and when you're living with somebody, you do that. You know, she says, I want to do this. Yeah, I'll do it.
It's part of that self-discipline is being.
Yeah, and it's okay. And you can do other things without compromising yourself. So you ask me to do something, even though I may not necessarily, but I'm going to do it for you out of generosity or out of respect, and it's okay. I'm willing to do that. But then I'm going to choose to do what I choose to do most of the time. Sure. So like an older student, older student coming in, it may be pragmatic to have them do all the regiment and stuff like that, but maybe at a level that's achievable for them. So if they're 45, don't try to have them perform like a 25-year-old. So have some grace. That's grace on the part of the instructor, and then some grace and maturity by the recipient. They have to recognize that too.
Sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah.
Ego can get in the way.
Yeah, and because the ego pops up, and we all have it, and that's not a bad thing, but, you know, be pragmatic. And then the young folks, you know, when people start something and they've been doing it, and Buzz has been very lucky to have students who have started, you know, as preteens and going all the way through college and then come back and then got married and then, you know, growing into, you know, people like yourself, people who sort of, even though they're in their 20s or 30s, you know, 2/3 of their life have been in practice of the martial arts. That's a testament, you know, to that. And then the other side of that, the old geezers like myself who have been around 50 years, 40 years, and 30 years, are all still coming and learning and participating because we feel we're getting something at our level that still resonates, you know. So that's a hard thing to do, you know, to have it so focused and broad at the same time, where it's invitation for everyone. No matter who you are, you're invited to come and practice. And this is not like a religious thing, but it's just, in a way, this is tremendously good work because people are looking to belong. One of the reasons when I come up here, I love the way you guys treat me because I don't necessarily get treated that way at all. I don't mean anything bad by that. And I get told that. I said, "You're not in karate now." So belonging is really important for all of us, you know, to belong. And then on the other side, belonging is acceptance. Is that if you feel accepted, you feel like you're my brother and I'm your brother. It feels that we can bond, and we could still disagree, but the bond and the camaraderie and the decency and respect and kindness is going to outweigh the difference of opinion about whatever comes up. If it's a technique or this or that, it's because we have a foundation. And that's what's important. And we're all looking for that. We're all looking for ways to connect with people similar without making other people the other, that we're all human beings. I'm doing a lot of work around that, around diversity, where it's not color, it's not just culture, it's about human. I call it the slow walk towards humanity. And it's a slow walk because, the labeling and all the stuff that goes on, transgressions and all that goes on, it gets in the way of people just looking at people and just saying, I see a person first, I might not like what they're doing, I don't care for what they're doing, but I still see them as a human being. And that's a hard task to do sometimes in an environment where we're so, visceral, where things are just so political and so at a point where we're using people as excuses to treat them inhuman. And that's the point I'm not going to get to. I'm not going to, no matter who they are, I'm not going to see them less than human. I may not agree with them, I may not like them, I may whatever, but I'm not going to get to the point where I see them as the other.
Goes back to the compassion you talked about earlier.
Yeah. And that, and then martial art helps that. So I feel secure in myself that I could be the outlier if in an environment where everybody's just casting stones on this unforgotten. I could feel very comfortable saying, I disagree with that action. I'm not afraid because everybody voted me out. I'll say, they condemn me. I'm okay with that. That principle to me is universal. Why do I have to achieve at your expense? There must be another way I could do that. Maybe we could do it together. Maybe we could barter. Maybe we could work, as a collective at times. Why do I have to make somebody else at a loss for me to profit? I disagree with that. That's all. And I want to get away from that. I don't want to do that. Believe me, when I was in corporate life, I was doing that. It's part of the corporate.
I talk with my wife all the time. I don't think I would have done well in corporate.
Yeah, but even in that environment, I was a big stakeholder. So my principles around stakeholders, everybody that was involved with the project was a partner, even the delivery guy. Not just the owner and the financial guy and the engineer and this and that. We're all stakeholders. And I got into really some tough things with some of the mucky-mucks in the company. They said, I used to do this thing where I wanted to, when these big jobs were being finished and the contractor was winding down their segment of the phase of it, I wanted to celebrate them for participating for the project. And then rather than at the end, Mucky Mucks comes in, who had nothing to do with it, do the ribbon cutting and get all the praise like they had nothing to do with it. I mean, they're involved, but they're not, they weren't a participant. They're just a glory hunter. And that used to bother me. So I used to put money aside to take, folks out if they want to lunch or they want to do a game or they want to whatever. And we made enough money, and we made money of them because we would take their bill, put money on top of it, mark up on top of it, right? And so we made money on top of the money that we're making. So, you know, the way I fought that was that show some gratitude for the people that were part of the job, part of the project. To treat them, I didn't own them, but just using their services, you know. And that was another piece where people thought that just to sign a contract, I don't own you. You have a wife, you have a kid, you have family. You're here to participate from 8 to 5 or from 7 to 6, it doesn't matter. And then you have a life. And, you know, when you go out the door, I'm wishing you well, because I want you to come back tomorrow. There was a policy where the company didn't care. They go in, well, he was off the clock, so I'm not involved. So don't you want him to come back tomorrow? Like, you're only concerned during the day? Well, that's all our concern is. So no, that person, to be a loyal and a valid employee, you care about what he's doing. I'm not saying you're interfering. You care about what he's doing because you want that person to come up tomorrow. You want that person to be here next week. You want them to be here next year. In other words, you're building relationships. You're not building transactions that is only 8 to 5 and you will break your leg and are concerned. Of course you're concerned because he's not going to be able to come tomorrow. He's got a broken leg. So it's not being sympathetic or something. It's being empathetic. And so I took a lot of flack. They called me a commie and you're too good doer. I said, no, good doer. Would you want people to go home to their loved ones? And then nobody yet of saying no, right? So I said, well, we want to be concerned. So if they have their loved one is sick or the child is sick, let's give them a day. It's okay. It's better to them. Then they're going to come back and they're going to say, gee, you treated me when I was in a pinch. That's how you build loyalty. They say, no, you don't have any time. I don't care. You're not going to do it. That person's strapped. So these are things, and this comes again from, you know, the martial arts where, hey, we're building teamwork. We're building collectiveness. We're building, and we could disagree. The people think disagreement is poison. It's not. It's healthy to have a debate about different points of view and different procedures. That's how think tanks work. They take and check things and evaluate and all that. But it doesn't mean that somebody has to be right or wrong. It's a process, right? So anyway, this piece of acceptance, you know, can come from an element of the martial arts, you know, and then the last piece on the training, I think is constantly revolving. I think like what you're doing with these little kids, you're giving them the foundation, and you know, in 3 and 4 and 5 years, that would be inbred. They're getting them just when they're ripening off the tree, you know, dropping the fruit off the tree, and that is a little bit more of a long term. So they're going to have value and principles, and that's going to be like a meaningful thing to them. And then, you know, when they're in high school, and somebody hits them upside the head, or the guy who's running at them knocks them over, they can pause and say, well, you know, not that they can't defend themselves, and say, well, they have to decide. Now, if I go and just storm this person in, what it's going to look like on the other side. In other words, that person end up in the hospital, the family gets involved, it goes down the road. So you become a little bit more thoughtful, that just hurting people for the sake of hurting people is not achieving anything, you know, and you're setting that into them early on. You know? So all of us come to the floor, come to the dojo, we're floored. We're looking for belonging, looking for wholeness, and this is I'm saying it's not like a religion, but it's about, it's a people business, safe place to develop. Absolutely. You know, that's the other thing. You feel safe. You come in here, you don't have to look over your shoulder. Is somebody looking in the window? You know what I mean?
If you are, it'd be a little weird.
But that you know, that's what people want. They want to go somewhere where they can feel belonging, and they feel they can express themselves. They can make mistakes, and not be admonished, you know, and be helped, you know.
I mean,
yeah,
that's a black belt. Black belts made every mistake in the book through their training, and that's once you get that black belt, you realize it's just the beginning of this of the amount of mistakes you're going to make, but you're going to learn something along the way, and you're going to grow.
And then maybe we need to have a little bit of a levity. Can't take ourselves too damn serious, even though it's a serious business at times. We've got to laugh at ourselves. You know, sometimes we make a mistake. We thoughtless. Maybe I did something just really silly, and then why beat myself up about it? I mean, I shouldn't do it again necessarily, but I don't have to punish myself for it. I can laugh at it. Oh, well, silly you are. Yeah, Dan and I went around in Melrose today, trying to get back. I left my car at the church. I went with him. We toured all around Melrose before I could find my car. And then by the time I got back to the church, I had forgotten which direction I was, because I parked my car 2 blocks away, right? But just going around and going by and going around, we were laughing like silly guys, right? And that's actually better than getting all, upset, about it, and hopefully we could do a little bit of that at times, when things are so tense. And we have a little bit of a laugh about it, It's important. It should be corrected and all that, but let's not.
You can have fun while being serious and
Yes,
working hard.
that's right. Yeah.
And honestly, if people are participating in an activity like the martial arts for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, I assume they'd be having fun, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
That's right, and it doesn't have to be misery. That's right. It could be fun things, and and we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. We have Butokukai, and I recognize what it offers, and it's an ongoing odyssey, ongoing living experience, ongoing connections, and we're very fortunate. And like everything else, we're going to have our bumps and bruises, disagreements. That's part of life. It's how we handle that when they come up. That's really important. Don't divide and conquer. So stake goes in the ground, guns come out. Boom, boom. Say no. Let's try to figure this out. Maybe do a little this, a little that, a little give and take. We figure it out. So tolerance, all that stuff is so important, Bill.
It's very important.
Yeah. So
we are very lucky to have you in the group as well. Help mentor us.
Yeah, and it's a wild card. I understand. With the early beginnings, there was a thing that I'd share with you as we end. So my mother died when I was 7.5, so I ended up in a foster home, and it wasn't a bad thing in a way, because the foster home was run by a group of people who were well off. So what they did, they actually built the buildings and staffed it and funded it. In fact, that group was LCCA, was a group that during World War I in England and World War II did a lot of volunteerism during the war to help their counterparts, their country people. So they had chapters, that was around the Commonwealth, Bermuda, Canada, whatever, if they had left So the chapter in Bermuda, they would take the displaced children and build these places, and then get a matron and build a home, so as a shelter for these folks. And then we had everything. So even though we didn't have much wealth, or we had no need for anything, we had clothing, we had this and that, and then opportunity came for the schools in Bermuda when we were going. They were all private, so. Secondary schools, high schools were all private, so you had to have money to pay for that. So living with all the children for all those years built a skill for me, built a skill of tolerance, right? That normal families won't get it. There's no way, a normal family, I mean, you can go to school and you can have schoolmates and all that, but you're not going to bed, you're not going to eating with them, not sleeping with them, you're not, being in the same household like a regular family. So rather than look at it as being an orphan, I looked at it as connecting with other people. So they become, like I say now, my brothers and sisters, because that was the thing that the matrons were trying to get over, which we resisted violently, but she was on the right path, that if anybody could be your brothers and sisters, it didn't have to be blood tied, if you're sharing the same environment, if you're sharing the same costs. It doesn't have to be religious. It could be, it'd be just a normal interaction. So those difficult periods was grooming me for learning how to just meet people and face value, sort of thing. And even though you felt lonely, you felt, didn't feel the cuddy and fuzzy and all that stuff, but it was a very good trait to learn, Years later, it became useful. I came to America. I didn't know anybody. I just moved on, just settled in and figured I'd work your way through it, rather than, Al, people went back. It was just too difficult for him, But I met Jody, we got married, and it went on. He married Carol, who was an American, lived in Medford, and he took her back to Bermuda. I wanted to build a family here, which I ended up doing, And now I connect back with my family, everybody, grandkids have been there to Bermuda. Everybody knows each other. There's two sides of the family. My father's side, which is the Mills, and Burrows' side, and the mother's side. Everybody talks to each other. Everybody gets along. So the whole thing has worked out way beyond my expectations. You know what I mean? Now I come here, Buzzes. I got another 50-year-old family. I go to a congregation. I got a family there. I go.
Thousands of connections.
Yeah, that's right. It is. Everybody go building this. I call it the ambassadorship. Yeah. So no, it's promoting, promoting people, and accepting people, and it feels good. Yeah. You have any more questions?
No, I think that's a very good place to finish.
Yeah.
I think that kind of sums up your philosophy and your mindset with your training in life, and I really appreciate you doing this interview. And
Bill, it's a pleasure, Merv.
Congratulations on the upcoming promotion.
No, I'll tell you, I'm very honored by this whole thing, and it wants to make me want to give even more at times, rather than less. I don't know. It's just I felt like many people who supported me along the journey, and you want to support as many people, not power over, but at the level that they can connect. It's choice, their choice. Provide at the level they want to receive, as little or as much as possible, and that's a trick to that too. So feel very, very fortunate.